how much of your day would you say you waste? Like, really think about it. How many minutes in a day do you think you waste? How many hours in a day do you think you waste? What was the last conversation you had? If that last conversation was the last conversation you would have with that person, how would you feel about it? How often do you talk to someone and you're not present in the conversation? How often are you around people that you love and that you care about, and you're not engaged in that conversation? You're not engaged with those people. How many times do you sit at a restaurant with a group of friends or a group of family and everyone is on their cell phone, and you look at the table and everyone's head is down? How often? What if that was your last interaction with those people? That's a question that I had when I talked to author and pastor Tim Timberlake. 1,440. That's how many minutes we have in a day. Every day, regardless of when you wake up, regardless of what happens, 1,440 minutes are what takes the space of the 24 hours we have. Of course, 8 hours of that is going to go to sleep, maybe, depending on who you are. Some of us, we only do 4, 5, 6 hours. But 1,440 minutes a day is what we have. There's no less, there's no more. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can change about it. You can't control it. There's nothing you can dictate when it comes to that 1440. So Tim wrote a book called The Power of 1440, making the most of every minute in your day. And I wanted to talk to him about this because it's something that we really don't think about when we wake up in the morning. We say, oh, I have this to do, I have that to do, blah, 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 whatever, what have you. You don't get minutes back. You can't add minutes to your day. You can't stop time. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is manage the 1440 on your scale, how you utilize it, how you make the most of that. So I wanted to talk to Tim about how we can be better at managing that 1440, how we can be more engaged in that 1440, how we can make sure that we're making the most in our lives. You're going to be shocked by some of these answers. You're going to be maybe thrown back a little bit. And that's fine. Sometimes we just need to be shocked to make things make sense. So, as always, sit back, relax. Welcome to SUAVV with Tim Timberlake.
So, for you, what was life like? What was growing up like? How did that work?
So I grew up one of seven, and originally the only boy by birth. And my parents ended up adopting my older brother, who was 6 months older than me, and my two younger siblings, brother and a sister. When I was about 12 years old, they adopted my older brother. And then when I was 16, my younger sister and younger brother were adopted. And so it was a house full of us, man. And my parents were pastors. And around 12 years old, my father was diagnosed with terminal throat cancer and was given 3 weeks to live, or an option to have an experimental surgery to remove the tumor. And they told him that, through this surgery, there was a great possibility that he would not make it off of the table. And so, the options were dire both ways. Either I got 3 weeks to live if I don't get this procedure, or I can, go through this experimental procedure and risk, living or dying. And so he decided to go with the procedure, and they were able to remove the tumor from his throat, which was the size of a chipmunk. But because they did that, they also had to remove a quarter of his tongue. So he was no longer able to eat or drink through his mouth for the remainder of his life. He was fed through a G tube. And so for me, growing up, it was like, seeing my hero kind of become a shell of himself. And so, growing up in church and around church, and that's all you know at 12 years old when you see your father fighting for his life. My perspective of God quickly changed, and it turned from, man, this is a concept that I can gravitate towards, to I want nothing to do with that God. I don't want to serve a God that would do this to his son, to the person that talks about him, to the person that promotes him, to the person that really elevates and lifts his name. And at the time, my parents were pastoring the largest church in North Carolina. And so we had people, man, thousands of people flocking to this church every single Sunday. And, I saw them have mountaintop moments of like incredible success and victories. And then at the same time, he's in the valley fighting literally for his life, just to get up, just to get out of bed, just to, walk through, the radiation, the chemotherapy that he continued to have. And so I just completely turned away from God, man, and walked away from God. And the catalyst for this book was a conversation that he had with me on my 18th birthday, and on my 18th birthday, he sat me down and really just kind of spoke into me what he saw me doing and what he felt like God had shared with him that I would walk into. And it was completely different than what I was doing. I had no relationship with God. I had no desire to serve God. And for 5 hours, man, he just really kind of poured into me what it was that I was here for and that assignment. And so I was halfway listening, and I really didn't want to be there. It was my 18th birthday. I wanted to go out and go to the club with my friends, man, and just kind of, kick it. And here he is just kind of drilling into me in a loving way, in a gracious way, but really in a way that was only what a father can do. And after 5 hours, Rashad, he pats me on my leg. He goes upstairs to his bed. And that next morning, 2 a.m., my mom knocks on my door. She says, "Hey, I need you to help me get your dad out of bed. He's not responding." And so I go into his room. I pull him out of the bed, man, and he's already transitioned. He's already died, man. Wow. And the last conversation that he had with me for 5 hours, I really wasn't there for. I was there physically, but I was not intentionally listening. And so, this book comes from that conversation. It's the catalyst of how we can be intentional with the time, how we can be intentional with the conversations, how we can be intentional with the moments, because we never know how a moment can shape our life and set the trajectory for our life for either the positive or the negative.
Wow. How did you adjust with that? Like, how did you adjust with knowing that, we never look at something like it being the last moment that you have. It's like we take advantage of a lot of those times, or we take it for granted rather. How did you deal with that after that, like knowing that was the last moment and you just kind of weren't there for it?
Yeah, I think for me, that was a moment that cost me a lot of pain. And one of the things that connects us all as humanity is the pain that we endure and the pain that we encounter. And a lot of times we try to run away from the pain. We don't want to go through the process of pain, but one of the greatest teachers in our life is pain. And I'm a firm believer that no pain will enter into my life without it producing something in me that leaves me stronger than I was before I encountered it. And so for me, it really shaped my perspective. It really gave me the perspective of every minute, every moment that we get, if not stewarded the right way, can cost us a lot of pain. And so, for me, it was a moment where I had to really grow up. It's a moment that I spent, in the 18, 19 years since that has happened in my rearview mirror, trying to remember, trying to reflect, trying to bring back those things that he said that I can't recall because I was not paying attention. And so I think it shaped a focus in me. And one of the things that I've learned kind of over the last 17 years in leadership is that if we are not careful and if we are not focused, then distractions begin to look like opportunities. And I was so distracted by everything that I wanted to do that I really missed the opportunity to have the last conversation with my dad that I would ever have. And in hindsight, looking in the rearview mirror, I would completely do things differently if I had known then what I know now. And so I just try to live my life now from that lens, from that focus of being intentional with the minutes that we are allowed to live out, because they are shaping us whether we know it or not. So every minute is an investment into our future. And what we desire to see is based off of the way that we steward our time right now.
It is crazy because I'm a pet peeve of mine, it gets, I think, worse by the year, is being with friends or family and having that time and everybody's on their phone.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy because it's just like, what are you doing that is so important that you can't just enjoy this moment?
Yeah.
And typically it's like updating an Instagram post, looking through other people's Instagram posts, right, looking at something online, like looking at, houses or cars, or it's always something random.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just spend 3 hours together and 2.5 hours where everybody on their phones. It annoys me to like the highest level. I think that is my biggest pet peeve right now. But it just, if you kind of like put that in perspective to anyone and say, what if that moment was your last moment with that person? Like, how would you feel? And I think if we really understood that, more people would enjoy each other.
Yeah.
Instead of like being sidetracked by quote unquote the world.
For sure. I think, today's culture and society really doesn't have a clear definition of what relationship is. And so we allow culture and society to define it for us. And so our definition of a friend is the click of a button. Mm-hmm. Our definition of a relationship is a follow or a like, and we allow culture to define to us something that only can be defined through authentic, genuine connection. And I'm not saying you can't discover those things online, because I believe that you can, but I think that we've done a poor job of defining what true, genuine relationships are. Mm-hmm. And so we live our life through the lens of pleasing people that we may never meet. Instead of leaning into the moments with the people that we love, that we see, that we hold near and dear to our heart. And one of the greatest barriers I've found in our life is familiarity. When something becomes so common, when something becomes so routine that it just becomes familiar. And one of the things that I share in the book is understanding how to have a heightened awareness. And the best example for me to use is like when we're in the kitchen and we're cooking, and we get so accustomed to smelling the food that it literally takes someone else walking into the kitchen and saying, okay, that smells good. What is that? Before it registers with us that we're actually smelling what we're smelling. Or right, when we're in a hotel or a lounge or a room that's playing music, And we sit in that space so long that the music gets washed out by all the other noise, and it takes someone to ask us, what's that song that we're hearing that sparks a heightened awareness for us? And sometimes we can become so familiar with the family, with the friends, with the relationships that we have, that it takes a heightened awareness and a fresh perspective to really lean into those relationships again with the newness and a new attitude, so that we can understand the significance and the importance of them.
Yeah. And it's funny, like on the flip side of that, like my brother, when he visits and his kids are here, I'm like, you don't hear them yelling? He's like,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
I'm like, dude, they are driving me crazy. Answer her. Like, she's called you 3,000 times. Answer her. And he's tuned out, and it's just like he's watching TV, and I'm like, how do you do this?
Right.
There's 5 kids, and like he comes, and like all 5 of them are like in your face. It's just like, I can't do this. Like, I'm gonna leave. Like,
right.
I can't process all 5 of them right now. Taking in doses.
I'm telling you, man.
But it's very true. Like, we get comfortable.
Yeah.
And whatever the situations are, and again, you stop valuing certain relationships, and like you said, when it comes to like the social media friendship thing, they can start and end with the click of a button.
Absolutely.
100%.
Like,
I've never seen people like break off friendships, break off relationships so quickly with just like no emotions, just click, gone. And I always ask if it's that easy to let something go, was it ever really there?
Right.
And it makes you just really question things. I'm a huge love-hate relationship, because I think it can be amazing for what it is, but it can be extremely toxic at the same time. Right. So it has to have a balance. When it comes to your book, is it hard to implement taking advantage of all the time in a day? Because I know, even myself, like there's hours wasted. Mm-hmm. And I will tell myself on any given day, there's not enough time in a day to get everything done that I need to do. Yeah. But when I sat last week and I just really monitored what I was doing, and it's like there's hours of wasted time a day. Mm-hmm. How do you make sure that you are checked in to life throughout the day?
You know, I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we could have is that we can manage time, right? It's impossible to manage what you cannot control. And so we can't tell time to stop. We can't tell time to start. We can't pause time. Time is the only thing in life that we can watch and it still gets away from us. And so if we can't manage it, then we have to steward it. And so in order to steward it, we have to prioritize how we utilize the time that we have. And so this book is not, setting us up to schedule and to make agendas and things like that. It's painting a picture and taking the reader on a journey of heightened awareness as to how they steward the time that they have. One of the things that I hear often is, I don't have enough time. And that's not true. We just need to prioritize our time better. And so how we prioritize our time determines the results that we get at the end of our day. And so for me, it's one of those things where if I can walk people on a journey through the pain, through the discomfort, through the unknown of my life, and kind of utilize it as a blueprint, then I'm helping more people avoid some of the same traps, some of the same tactics, some of the same wounds that I had to go through in order to write the book. And so that's the whole premise of it for me, is adding value to people's lives and helping them avoid some of the pitfalls of wasting time that I had to go through and process and really live through, and utilizing it as a roadmap, man, for people, So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like I said, I couldn't imagine. Like I can literally look at conversations that I've had with people or moments with someone where I just wasn't tuned in and I was completely somewhere else. And God forbid, like if that person was gone, I would regret that last encounter.
Yeah.
Because it's like I just know that I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And for me, and I try to, I'm something I work on, I'm always working when I'm doing something else. So it's like I'm always doing something. It's either, checking emails and whatever. Like it's always something. Now, when I'm quote unquote socializing, I'm socializing. Right. And I try to keep work away from my social life. But it's like when I'm working, it's like everything else is just there and it's ambiance in the background, and I'm focused on the thing that I'm focused on. Yeah. And that's, to some people it's great, to some people it's horrible. It's just finding out where that balance is at again.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing, just understanding what the balance is, so that you are not existing, but you are actually living, and making a living doesn't get in the way of your life. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, man, I had to really be intentional 7 years ago, just to pull up and look at, okay, this is the life that I'm living, and these are the things that I have done, and those things won't get me to where I have in my heart to get to. One of the things, man, that my dad told me that I remember, he said to me, Rashad, he said, youth is a gift that is often understood when you're too old to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
And, for me, I want to take this life that God allows us to live, and even in the midst of work, even in the midst of knocking out the things that I have to do, just pulling up and really paying attention to the opportunity of doing it. And so even if it takes me longer, even if it takes me an hour longer, I want to enjoy the journey of actually fulfilling the assignment, so that I don't forget it. I can't tell you how many things that I did that I forgot. And I'll get a memory in the iPhotos of my phone. I'm like, where was this? What? And it's just like, oh man, I wasn't there. I was there, but I wasn't present. And so just being present in the moment and being intentional with the minutes, so that our moments can shape our reality and not the regret.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So what I'm excited about is I know that when people get your story and get the book and start, looking back at their life and how they're living their lives and trying to start making the adjustments, I can tell it's going to be a positive outcome. What does that do for you? Because at that point, you're a catalyst in other people living, like you said, instead of existing. What does that do for you, and what's the next thing you want to happen after that?
It's humbling, number one, that God would utilize my pain to help people avoid theirs. And the second thing that I pray that it does is add value to people's life. And, at the end of our lives, we're known for one of two things: either the problems that we solve or the problems that we create. And so if this helps people to solve problems, then my life and the pain that I've endured and encountered and walked through is well worth it. And so that to me is my prayer. That's my that's my hope, that when people read it, something in it sparks something in them, and it takes them on a journey of discovery to understand the greatness that is in them, and a percentage of what life could be if they leaned into every moment.
I love it. I literally there's nothing else to ask you. Like, it's just like I love interviews I can walk away from and like they inspired me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I can walk away from something that now I feel inspired to go and do more, like in my personal life, professional life, whatever. It's like you walk away feeling something. Like I love that. So thanks, man. I definitely appreciate it.
Man, I'm honored, bro.
Absolutely.
I just want to say to you, man, I think that the assignment that God has you in right now is a platform, a springboard, really a trampoline that is taking you to where it is that He's designed for you to go. And at times and in seasons, I know it seems like, man, this is pulling me back, but it's pulling you back to project you further, like a slingshot. And so, I just want to encourage you, man, to continue to do what you're doing, because it's making a difference, and you're being used in an incredible way, bro.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.